the Center for American Progress Action Fund. She is a gun owner, a veteran, and an NRA member. And Erin, it's really a pleasure for you to join me. And I want to begin with the question, why are you an NRA member?
Chris, that's a great question. I work at a very progressive think tank here in Washington, and people ask me that all the time, mainly people who have never touched a firearm before. I'm a veteran. I'm a gun owner. I had the pleasure of working at a civilian firearm range when I came home from Iraq and didn't know what to do with myself. And so I got to see both sides of it. I got to see the military side of the culture, where the purpose is to do violence on behalf of other Americans who maybe aren't willing to pick up a firearm themselves, and that's fine. And then I got to see the civilian side, where it was more for training and the precision of skill and marksmanship. And I don't see any of that reflected in the tweets and the reports coming out of the NRA conference tonight. It's truly disheartening.
What is disheartening about it? Because, you know, the question here is, there's an emotional and visceral appeal to guns, to gun ownership, to gun culture, to shooting as an activity. And then there's membership in the NRA, which you have chosen to do. And you didn't answer the question of why you are a member, right? I mean, that is the question. And then there's the question of what the NRA is doing politically on behalf of its members.
You may know that Adolphus Busch resigned his membership about a week or two ago, and he made a pretty big statement saying I'm withdrawing my lifetime membership. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. Well, Chris, you said it. The NRA is very powerful, and I would hate to think that someone with my values about the Second Amendment, that it is my right to bear arms, just as it is your right or anyone else's right to not bear arms or to not be affected by gun violence. I think that's the other side of it. I don't think that people like me, people who believe that there should be background checks, that that's common sense as part of firearm sales, that we should flee from the NRA. If anything, we need to be even more represented, and I think we are. Even before Sandy Hook, reports came out that 3 out of 4 NRA members support common sense background checks. So I don't really think that I'm in the minority in wanting to be represented.
Right. So then how is it the case? And I should say there's 100 million gun owners. I think I said 10 and it was off by a factor of 10. And 100 million gun owners in the country is part of the reason for the power here, right? How is it the case then that the NRA has, you know, you work for the Center for American Progress, you're on my liberal television show. You're sitting here, and that's not the folks who are in the room in Houston, Texas, who are driving the agenda for this organization. So how do you close that gap?
I got to tell you, I'm a little concerned about the stand and fight rally that's going on tomorrow. I got to tell you, I put on the uniform, I stood, I fought, and what I want to see tomorrow isn't a rally of people saying, let's all get together and hate the other side. What I would like to see is everyone, the kind of rally I'd like to see is a, hey, let's sit down, let's chill, let's breathe, and let's talk to the other side, because the so-called gun culture isn't necessarily a culture that's reflective of me or the other gun owners that I know. It's turned into this culture of fear that they're going to take away our guns, and that's simply not true, Chris. And the other side is guilty of it too. I see websites like StopTheNRA.com coming out, and I think to myself, hey, wait a minute. I'm the NRA. I want common sense background checks. I want my well-regulated militia, as written in the Second Amendment. Don't try to stop me.
When you were working at the gun range, how much of the culture there was informed by precisely this kind of fear about government overreach, and how much of the emphasis of the culture is on the aspect of gun ownership that is about, as Jim Porter said, being able to strike when tyranny happens? The idea that guns need to be stockpiled for the eventuality, and we just saw polling out which showed very high percentages of Republicans believing an armed rebellion might be necessary, right? How much of what was driving the culture in the range that you worked in was a culture that was driven by the fear of the moment when tyranny became so intense that Americans had to take up arms against it?
Well, Chris, I was in Los Angeles, and if you know anything about Los Angeles and Los Angeles firearm regulations, it's some of the strictest in the country. Maybe New Jersey and New York can rival us. But we rented guns, we sold ammunition, we gave firearm instruction every Saturday and Sunday. It didn't affect our sales, and the people there seemed happy. I mean, they weren't necessarily pleased with the 10-day waiting period that's in California, but I got to tell you, it probably prevented a lot of people from coming in and making a hot-headed decision about a firearm purchase, and it didn't hurt our sales any. We felt very safe, and then the emphasis there was more on training and marksmanship and the art of marksmanship that I've come to love, and not on these political ideologies that are clearly polarizing. Who wants to come to the table with rhetoric like that?
Erin, if Wayne LaPierre is watching the show right now and watches this interview and says, you know what, we should put her on stage on Saturday, and you got a chance to go down to Houston and talk to the folks in that hall, what would you want to tell them?
Well, I think that's two different audiences for me. If I'm talking about Jim Porter and I'm talking about Wayne LaPierre, and then I'm talking about the other gun members, to Jim Porter and to Wayne LaPierre, I say, you make this as transparent as possible. We are supposed to be a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. What happened? There are people, good people, who have been affected by gun violence. There are people out there who haven't been affected by gun violence, and they don't want to be. And they have every right not to be affected by gun violence. They want to come to the table with us right now, and we need to do it. To the membership, I say, speak your mind in whatever forum that you can. Take to the internet, take to the stage, and speak your mind. Say, like I am saying, that we support common sense background checks. If it saves one life, it's worth it.
Erin Sepp, the Center for American Progress Action Fund, NRA member, Iraq war vet. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Chris.
There are more than 32,000 gun-related fatalities per year. It may surprise you to